On today's show, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff. The Ben Simmons situation is raising its ugly head. It's becoming awkward. Daryl Morey said, I'll let it get awkward. And guess what? It is.
And we're going to talk about Russell Westbrook's big debut for the Lakers.
Dirk made the top 75 greatest players of all time. We'll talk about that too. Compare the Ben Simmons situation with the Kristaps Porzingis situation and how it could have been that. We'll talk about all that on today's Locked On Mavs.
Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Westbrook Wonder, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I mean, any night that the Lakers lose, it's a good night. And there's just something about, Westbrook sucking on the Lakers that is a lot of fun to root against. So yeah, it's a good first night of the NBA basketball. I put a lot of them on the Bucks this season, and Giannis winning MVP. I feel very confident in that, and I love seeing the Lakers lose.
Yeah, we'll get into both of those games later. The implications for how the Lakers looked for the Mavericks, I think, means a little something, at least the roster and all that, and how they looked finally in the first game. So we'll talk about that, get into a whole bunch of stuff. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. Remember, Locked On Mavs is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can see us right now hanging out. You can see Isaac's great NBA 2K.
Do you have on?
This is my Ahsoka Tano shirt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do I need to know what Ahsoka Tano is?
It's from Star Wars.
Oh. Okay. Go Star Wars.
All right. So the Ben Simmons situation is getting crazy right now because
I love it.
I'm sure everybody saw the reports. He was thrown out of practice on Tuesday.
Get out of here.
I kept tweeting the DJ Jazzy Jeff getting thrown out by Uncle Phil on the Fresh Prince show, like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where you just throw him out of the front door, and you throw him out. If you watch the reunion special, they said that they just kept using the same clip over and over because it was the funniest one. But to get that clip, they had to do that like 100 times, or Jeff had to just like jump out of a window onto like this mat. So it was like that. They just threw him out of practice. And then TNT played some footage of Ben Simmons at practice looking just miserable, and saw him while the whole team was getting together and putting their hands together for a huddle. And he's just sort of dribbling a basketball around the perimeter of the huddle and like not engaging. And then as soon as they broke the huddle, he walked straight out, and all the players stayed and were like talking to each other, and he just completely left.
Dang.
This whole thing is getting crazy. And the reason why we wanted to talk about this today, first of all, because it's nuts. And second of all, the Kristaps Porzingis thing could have totally ended like this and could have been like this completely. We know he wanted a trade at the end of last season. We know that things were getting bad.
Tim McMahon reported that. Yeah.
Tim McMahon reported that. That's why we know, because it was getting bad. It was getting bad the way that it ended at the end of the playoffs, and even towards the end of last season, it was just starting to get to a point where we thought that it was a point of no return for the Mavericks.
Yeah, I mean there was going to be some big changes this summer either way. If I think there is an accurate what if Rick stayed, if the front office stayed, would KP be on this roster right now? I'm not for sure. I don't want to put my odds on that, but with Rick leaving, that allowed them that opened up a door of, okay, now we can have a different conversation about the Kristaps Porzingis era in Dallas, because now we can talk about, in a way, and it's a lot of it is accurate, but in a way now we can say, hey, okay, Rick's gone. Now we can kind of put a lot of it on Rick, right? It's like, it's just the role. It was the role he played. They put him in the corner, all this stuff. Now we want to shift that narrative. We want to shift. And I say shift the narrative.
We being the Mavericks saying this, that
exactly.
They've been pushing this narrative for sure.
And it's a lot of it's true. So I'm not trying to say it's like some fake thing that they're trying to like create or anything. It's true because it's his first healthy off season. That, and they can really do that. So There is a world though that you watch all this that's unfolding with Ben Simmons and say, okay, well, what if Rick didn't take the Indiana job? Like, what if Rick is back? Like, it was just a few weeks before he took that job that Mark Cuban, told Mark Stein, like, hey, Rick's not going anywhere. Like, we expect Rick to be back.
The grass isn't always greener. That was what he said. And I was like, I kind of agree with him.
Yeah, he was saying the grass isn't green as far as like another coach to replace Rick from his side. So, and then Rick goes to Indiana, but like, what if Rick stayed? Are we having this situation? Are we having our own Ben Simmons situation to where KP's like, hey, I'm healthy, and I'd be dang if I'm going to come back and stand in the corner again. And we're having all of this all over again, or not all over again, but we're having a similar situation. So I think a little bit of it's on the fact that Rick left, so it allowed him to not have a Ben Simmons situation. But I think we can also praise KP and the Mavs of how they've handled it at the same time.
The way the Mavericks have packaged it, the way that they have supported him and pushed him, and some would say coddled, but just the way that they've all come together and be like, all right, we're going to give KP what he needs. The confidence that we believe that he can be a basketball player and not just a stand in the corner 3-point shooter. All the stuff that we've heard all offseason has been positive. And it's the Mavs and KP are a little bit early in the timeline compared to where the Sixers and Ben Simmons were.
Yeah.
Sixers and Ben Simmons have been doing this for like 3 years. They've been saying, Ben Simmons, we just want him to shoot 1-3 a game. We just want him to try. Like, remember that? They tried
Ben and Joel, they can play together.
They can play together. They've tried this for like 2 or 3 years, and it finally hit a point where, Ben Simmons and then the Sixers were like, I don't think this is going to work. And the other thing that we should point out is the agent situation. The agent that Ben Simmons has is a guy that makes moves whether the other side likes it or not, right? Like, Rich Paul is not a guy that's just going to sit on his laurels and all right, we'll just let the trade come to us. He's like, no, we're demanding the trade and we're staying out of this, right? Like, we're not going to let the money come to us. We'll just go ahead and go try and find the money somewhere else. His clients are classic for doing that and trying to find their right spot. It's not happening with Kristaps Porzingis right now, and I think both sides deserve some credit. The way the Mavericks have handled it, like you pointed out, I think the way Kristaps Porzingis has handled all this has been great too. I think that he could have just pouted and been like, no, say what you guys want. I know you're just trying to make, you're just blah, blah, blah. It's all just noise. I know it's just going to be the same thing. I don't want to play with Luka anymore. I'm just going to stay away. He could have done that, right? Like, it totally could have ended that whole situation like that. I'm also bringing up the Marvin Bagley situation, which another statement came out from Jeff Schwartz, who is Marvin Bagley's agent. A different situation than Ben Simmons and Porzingis because of talent and all that. But the statement was insane.
But by a prominent agent too. This isn't Bagley's dad or somebody releasing a statement. This is Jeff Schwartz.
Written out in a graphic with their font and their logo on it. So it's like
not like
pissed. Yeah, it's not like some reporter like us was just like, oh, we'll just write. We'll
it wasn't a Clutch Sports graphic, right?
Yeah, right. Quote: Sacramento has informed Marvin Bagley he is not in the opening night rotation, which is completely baffling. It is clear they have no plans for him in the future and yet passed on potential deals at last year's deadline and this summer based on, quote, value. Instead, they chose to bring him back and not play him, a move completely contradictory to their value argument. This case study in mismanagement by the Kings organization. Like, both of these situations in Simmons and Marvin Bagley, like the Kristaps Porzingis situation could have ended like that, and it's not. And I think that both sides deserve a little credit for it.
Yeah, Dallas did such a good job of taking the blame off KP. Hey, like, he wasn't healthy. This is a healthy offseason now. They've done a really good job at empowering him and like really encouraging him and building him up, not just him personally, but also in the media. And that matters, right? I mean, we just saw what,
it does.
What Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers said after the playoffs. And it's like, all right, couple shots at Ben, and
I don't care about that man.
And I mean, the Joel Embiid comments today were incredible. I was just like, sign me up for all of this. I love that he's just being candid and like, screw all the the correct talk and stuff he was saying. He's like, all right, I don't care anymore. The gloves are off, so we don't care about him. But I'm fascinated to see what I think. Both sides kind of deserve some blame. I don't think Philly is just walking through this on the white horse. And I think they've known for a while that Ben wanted out. They've waited, they've embraced the awkwardness, and now you're kind of here. So you kind of got to accept some blame too. But what Ben's doing is just kind of, I don't know.
Is what it is at this point. So yeah, Kristaps Porzingis situation could have ended like this. with like the way it is with Ben Simmons, but I think that both sides have at least come together. They've talked, they've worked it out. And as of right now,
great vibes, man. Just great vibes, like great vibes.
All right, coming up, let's get into a lot more stuff. Dirk was named to the top 75 greatest players of all time. We have to talk about that. Also, Lakers, Warriors, Bucks, Nets. We'll talk about those games, break down what we think matters for the Mavericks. We'll talk about all that. But before we do, let me tell you about Sweatblock. Sweatblock is a new product, and we've been talking about Sweatblock for a few weeks. Those wipes that stop sweat for 7 days. And it seems like a lot of you guys have been listening. We have friends of Locked On who have tried Sweatblock and love it. Here's a couple of our friends that have actually tried. High school teacher. I know a bunch of you guys are teachers. I talked to you when my wife was trying to find a job here in Dallas. High school teacher said, we have a story here about a high school teacher when he'd pit out by fourth period. So basically he was getting pit stains, sweaty armpits by the fourth period. He'd hear the snickers and the whispers from his students. So he started to bring a second shirt to change into between classes. Then he heard about Sweatblock on our program, on one of the Locked On programs. He tried it, and now he is hooked. No more snickers, no more whispers, no more students making fun of him, no more second shirt. He gets to wear just the one shirt, and it's all because of Sweatblock. So if you want to check out Sweatblock and stop excessive sweat under your underarms for up to 7 days, it's doctor created, doctor recommended. You get a dry shirt guarantee. Check, and it's not just for armpits, by the way. It's for chest, back, feet, hands. Use it anywhere that you sweat, really. Check it out, sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get 20% off. Again, sweatblock.com, 20% off at sweatblock.com. All right, Isaac Harris.
Do we have some like testimonial hotline that I missed for people to call in and tell
they gave us new copy.
Oh, okay.
They sent us new info.
Oh, sweet.
They gave us new points. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. Let's get into the Dirk Nowitzki top 75 greatest players ever, Isaac Harris.
Let's go. More like top 20, but top 75.
But they're naming the top 75. He was not in the 50 greatest players ever, because I don't think he was in the league at that time.
No,
or maybe he was really early in his career, but he was named to that. So I don't want to gloss by this. This was actually a really big deal for Dirk. It's a big deal for the Mavericks. He's probably, I guess Jason Kidd will probably make it. Steve Nash did make it. So like, if you're trying to name how many Mavericks will be on this, he's the only like real prominent one that's going to be on this list. And unless they'd put Luka in there. But Dirk Nowitzki was named. What does it mean for Dirk, the Mavericks, and everything that Dirk was named to this list?
I mean, it was a given. It was a lock. We all knew this was going to happen. The release of the top 75 players, for 75th anniversary of the season, they had the top 50, like you said. They don't have to keep the same top 50 that they had before. They're going back and revisiting some of that. So some of the players that were in the top 50 might not be in the top 75. They're releasing them in kind of 3 segments. So, last night we got, 25 players, no order, not, 1 through 25, nothing like that. 25 players again on Wednesday night, 25 players again on Thursday night. So they put Dirk in that first group. We knew Dirk was common sense to be in it, but we also knew Dirk was going to be in it also because he's in some of this NBA promotional stuff that they're going to be doing for a while. I've really, you guys need to be subscribed to Mark Stein's Substack. A little while back, he did his own like top 75. And I was really looking through that because I don't know. I've been really obsessed about this, and I've been looking into it.
He tries to make it a topic on this podcast, like for the last 4 weeks.
I've been like texting Nick. I'm like, can we do a whole pod on the top 75 and like what's the path for Luka and all this stuff? And I do want to bring this up. So yeah, you talked about Steve Nash, Kid, all that. Does Luka have a shot? And I only say that because when you look at the top 50 back in the 90s, Shaq made it. Yep. Shaq made it, very early in his career. So I just used Mark Stein just for the simplicity of it, of who he had as locks, some recent players. He had 15 active and recently retired players as locks. Okay. And so we're not going to do any of the older players right now. And even looking at that list, it's a very obvious list of like Kobe, Steph, Tim Duncan, Durant, Kevin Garnett, Harden, AI, LeBron, Kawhi, Steve Nash, Dirk, Wade, Westbrook. Now, he only had 2 players on Mark Stein's list that were in the 20s. They're in the 20s right now. That's Giannis, and he had Jokic in there.
In their 20s, like age-wise.
And I'm like, what would be Luka's like, does Luka have the path right now for him to be in that? And I really wanted to make the case. I just don't think he can.
The way Shaq made it, it was the 97 season that they decided the 50 greatest players. It was the 97 All-Star game. So that 96-97 season. Shaq had been an All-Star all 5 years, his first 5 years in the league. He had been in the league 5 years. He had also made the finals twice with Orlando. Yeah. And so
that's the thing. Luka just doesn't have the finals appearance.
He had accomplished more at that point in his career.
There's some players that Mark Stein has that he gives explanations on that I know some people in the pod be like, oh my gosh, why would you have, he has Draymond Green. And he was like, I know I'm going to get crap for having Draymond Green on here, and he goes on to explain why he has Draymond on here. He has other players on here that have title appearances. And then you're comparing like Luka. Why should Luka make it? There's players on here that I'm confident Luka is the better overall player than a decent amount of players, but it's the resume, right? Like it's somebody like a Reggie Miller. It's somebody like Paul Pierce has a title, but Gary Payton, like these guys have the longevity that it's like, all right, I think, I would take Luka over Manu Ginobili, for instance, who's on, Mark Stein's list as a top 75 player, but Ginobili has these titles. He was in the league for so long. So that's then you start looking at some of these names who might not make it and starting to compare, because he even talked about Luka at the very end. He's like, does Luka have a shot? And will he get the Shaq treatment in this? And I just don't think he will. And it's close.
And the idea is that you're projecting, right? You're not saying what he has accomplished at this point in his career is good enough for him to make the 50 greatest or 75 now greatest players ever. It's that you're projecting, okay, he's been this good so far. We think this is going to last and he's going to end up being one of these where we're like, oh, why didn't we put Luka on this list back then? So,
the argument for it is no one's had the start to a career like Luka that we've seen, right? No. Statistically, everything. We have thrown out on this pod, like comparing him to Jordan, comparing him to LeBron. LeBron's one of the big ones of, the chosen one coming out of high school and his early success. And it's like, Luka's had this like crazy statistical start. He has the accolades of the first team All-NBAs and the All-Stars and Rookie of the Year, like all of that. He just doesn't have the title. So the case for it is, dang, Luka, talent-wise, he really is one of the best 75 players of all time. It just gets into the argument of, okay, well, he's going to pass up somebody like a, Gary Payton or something, or whoever it is. So,
and for me, I think that these lists should be about like celebrating fully accomplished careers. That like, okay, we know what you've been so far. Can you tell the story of basketball it's the same as the Hall of Fame for me. Can you tell the story of basketball with these guys? And if you leave anybody out, could you not tell the story of? And I think that Warriors team needs to be, like Durant made it already. Steph is probably going to make it, but I don't know about Draymond on that list with Mark Stein.
He had Clay also.
Yeah, but that was a big chunk of the NBA. That was like 5 years of the NBA that they just dominated everything. Like they dominated regular season. They won 3 titles. They dominated the news cycle, like all that kind of stuff. Bringing it back to Dirk, I think that you can't tell the story of basketball without Dirk Nowitzki. We have spent so much time on this podcast. Probably a lot of you that are listening now may not have heard our whole Dirk farewell tour a couple years ago, but he is he is everything he is said to be when you meet him, when you get to talk to him, when you sit down with him, or when you just see him walk by, or when you see him take time out of his day out after a game or something like that to meet a fan that flew so far away. He just does all that kind of stuff. The charity work that he does. I think that naming him to this is massive for the Mavericks. It gives them, boom, you're part of basketball history. And I don't think that every franchise is going to get that. Like, are the Hornets going to get somebody like that? Are the Kings going to get somebody named to this?
Terry Rozier.
I know you start naming players, and not every franchise gets this. And so appreciate Dirk Nowitzki being named to this team. He is one of the 75 greatest players ever. He's higher than 75 for sure, but he's in that group for sure. Also, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is going to be the first, like, we're going to be doing a lot of Dirk reminiscing over the next few years, because the jersey retirement, the statue, Hall of Fame's coming up in the next year or so. So like, there's a lot of stuff that, is coming up.
There was a Mavs event with Mark Cuban and everybody and players, and I think it was called the Toast Tip-Off. And our friend at Mavs Fan for Life on Twitter was live tweeting it. And he said, the Dirk statue is coming to the South Plaza at the American Airlines Center, and his jersey retirement will be this season, according to Mark Cuban.
Ooh. Let's go.
So there's going to be a lot more Dirk talk. We're going to appreciate Dirk. He's named to the greatest 75 players of all time. Incredible. Drew Carey is on with the TNT guys right now. I have no idea why. That's why I was very distracted during that segment, because they have Drew Carey. Very weird. There you go. Dirk deserves it. He's also going to be an ambassador for this whole thing. So I think there's going to be a lot more cool stuff that Dirk's going to do and represent the Mavs. And I think that's great.
I'm all here for it. If Luka does get named, we're going to flip out, and he deserves it. I think he does deserve it if he gets named. Like, it makes sense. Of all the young players that could get the Shaq naming, it's Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
It's just,
unless you think Giannis is that guy, because they already named Giannis to it. So unless you think Giannis fills that position.
Does Jokic make it?
I don't think so.
He's got the MVP.
It's a little early now. If that happens, if Luka gets named, we're going to be. Just give you a little taste. Coming up, let's get into the games that happen. Lakers, Warriors. Oh boy, what the Lakers look like. What does it mean for the Mavericks, their playoff chances, all that kind of stuff. It's one game, but we're going to play that game. It's one game, but we're going to talk about that. Also, Bucks, Nets, get into them. The Nets did not convince many people that they're going to have this incredible season like I predicted they're going to have. We'll talk about all that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Built Bar. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. We had somebody in our YouTube comments say, why are you guys always peddling candy bars? No. Listen to the whole ad. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and they're delicious. We eat them all the time. And the reason why we talk about them, first of all, because they pay us. Second of all, because they're good and they're great. Right now, you can get blueberry muffin, 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 6 grams of sugar in a bar that will help you buy time between snacks, will help you after a workout. If you need to just get some protein in, boom, right there. You can take that with you. There's all kinds of different flavors you can get. The blueberry muffin is brand new. Rocky Road you can get, cherry lime, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, all kinds of flavors you can get at built.com. You can get all kinds of other things as well. Check it out. They're also the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, the promo code is LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com. Also, let me tell you about betonline.ag. It's the fastest and easiest way to put down some money on sports, to bet, to wager, to gamble, all that stuff. They are the #1 spot for basketball and football action this season. You can go ahead and bet on all kinds of stuff. We were talking about awards the other day. You can still go bet on that. NBA player futures, MVP, Luka, #1, plus 500 for Luka to win MVP. So he's not like the overwhelming favorite right now. Durant is right behind him at plus 650. Giannis right there, plus 650 as well. So not a big gap between Luka and those two guys. Steph Curry up there as well. Joel Embiid, James Harden, LeBron James. Jokic to make a return, plus 1,800. Put $100 down, and if Jokic wins MVP again, you win $1,800. Pretty good odds. Go check it out. Bet online, where the game starts. Use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus. Again, betonline.ag, where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into some of these games. Lakers, Warriors. Let's start with that one. Russell Westbrook. Could he have looked worse in his
worried?
Lakers debut?
Are you worried?
Am I worried for the Lakers? I think that their defense was awful.
Yeah.
I think that maybe is to be expected this early in a season when they didn't really treat preseason like a warm-up. They treated preseason like, hey, it's a dress rehearsal. It's like, we're not going to really go out there and it's dress rehearsal. It was basically like the way the Lakers treated preseason was a dress rehearsal where you don't have to have the costumes, right? It's like a walkthrough. If you guys have ever done a play or a musical or something, there's the walkthrough, and then there's the actual like real rehearsal, dress rehearsal, the one that you do it for no crowd, basically. They were not treating preseason like that. What the fit with Westbrook and LeBron and Anthony Davis, it's going to be fine for the regular season. They're going to eat up some minutes. He's going to score a bunch of points. LeBron looked great. Anthony Davis's offensive game was there. He couldn't hit free throws. He hit 1 3 that was insane. But the defense is problematic if you actually want to win big games.
I'm just fascinated by their supporting cast. Like, you started DeAndre Jordan. What are we doing? And
the thing is, they started DeAndre Jordan, who has not been with the team very long and was just cast off by the Nets, who was like this big piece that they brought in and touted him as like, all right, he's there with Kyrie and Durant, and DeAndre Jordan. We're like, what the heck? And then they gave him this big deal. It was like 4 years, $40 million they gave him a couple years ago. And then they just cast him off like they didn't need him at all. And he starts. And then they play Avery Bradley, who literally signed with them like a day ago.
Yeah, I mean, Avery Bradley, Bazemore, Carmelo, Rondo, like, just who they close games with, I'm so curious about. And yeah, I mean, I have them number 2 in the West, so it's not like I'm like, oh, blah 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 blah. Like, they're still gonna be a good regular season team, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think it is a little like, if AD or LeBron like goes down, I mean,
for sure, it could be the same thing as last year for the
because
Lakers.
like Caruso was good defensively,
Yeah.
and like you had, like, I feel like the Lakers had good defenders, and
You get rid of Caruso, Kuzma, and KCP, and that matters for your defense.
yeah. So I mean, as much misery that they can be in, the better. I love I love all of it. And you know what? They lost a key assistant coach that could be Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd and Greg St. Jean. They lost both of them.
And they lost Jared freaking Dudley.
Oh, for sure. LeBron was actually mad about that. So their supporting cast, they'll get Taylor Horton Tucker back. They'll get Kendrick Nunn back. I don't know if that fixes everything. It's at least going to make it a little bit better, a little more
I don't care about
palpable.
them in the regular season. They'll be fine. The playoffs, they got to figure out the Russ crap, because I don't think he'll be this bad, but I don't think you can just write this off either and be like, doesn't matter at all.
Somebody I think I saw Dalton Trigg tweet this, where there's a Westbrook timeline. First, like 40 games of the year, you're like, this is the worst player in the NBA. And then there's a break. And then it's like, this is the best. Then the next 40 games, this is the best player in the NBA. And then the playoffs, it just like all goes to, to hell, basically.
Okay, let me ask this though. Do you feel any different about the Warriors? Because if the Warriors really get that Bielitsa and they get that Jordan Poole, then
and triple double Steph,
that's fine. Whatever about that. But like,
I mean, but Steph didn't shoot well. He shot 5 of 21. He shot 2 of 8 from 3, and they still won the game by like double digits.
Yeah, that isn't happening last year.
That wasn't happening last year, really. And so I guess the difference was just Jordan Poole, and then coming off the bench, Bielitsa and David
let's
Lee.
Bring this back to Dallas. Bring this back to Dallas here. When you can hit on guys like Jordan Poole, when you can hit on a guy like Jordan Nora for Milwaukee,
Bucks, yeah.
And it's like, you find these guys at these super cheap dollar amounts, but if you could get these guys in like a key part of the rotation, this is why a guy like Josh Green would be huge for Dallas if they can make him hit like that. But it's like, you're watching Jordan Poole tonight. It's like, man, you're looking at the signing of Bielitsa, and I'm like, man, look, he fits he played so well for them tonight. And I'm like, man, he just fits like this. He's about to have his best season of his career right now. And yeah. And the same thing, with Nora out of Louisville. And it's like, man, we were texting about him during the game. I'm like, that would be huge for Milwaukee this year.
It would be huge. I also watched the Lakers roster, and I was like, man, I start feeling a little bit better about Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleba, like even Dwight and Willie, and Trey Burke. I was like, I'm feeling a little bit better about these guys, because that's what the rotation could be. It could be just a bunch of cast-offs from other teams. And I think the Mavericks role play rotation, at least compared to the Lakers. Now, compared to other teams, it's not the best, but I think compared to the Lakers, at least, it's looking pretty good.
Well, I mean, they at least have young legs, so they can at least run a little bit.
Usable legs.
Milwaukee, Brooklyn, one, Patty Mills looked great for them. That was awesome, to see him. But I mean, I just feel as confident as ever in my Giannis MVP pick. Milwaukee, the best record in the league. I just think they're going to be a machine this year. Like they. And they were hyped. They heard all the dialogue this summer of if Brooklyn was healthy, they wouldn't win. And Giannis he's so much fun to watch, man. And
the demeanor of these two teams was on display so like you can see it. It's so easy to see because the Bucks they take the lead from Giannis, and Giannis is, I'm gonna go after this. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna go get this rebound. I'm gonna go after the bucket. I'm gonna go after the rim. And Harden and Durant are like, I'm just gonna lay back, let the game come to me. And then in the fourth quarter, with like 10 minutes to go, I'm gonna start trying now. Now I'm gonna start trying. We're 10 points away. We're gonna start trying now. And just the flow of the game for the rest of the players just doesn't work. It didn't work for them in that situation. Now that Nets team is still just going to be able to do that and chill, and then at 10 minutes in the fourth quarter, go on some 20-2 run or something like that and win a whole bunch of games because they have that kind of firepower on offense. But yeah, when these two teams go head to head, you just see the difference in their demeanor. And maybe it'll serve the Bucks better because they're just going to be going after it. I thought the Bucks rotation was really suspect though, if you start looking at it.
I actually like some of the players.
I mean, they played 27 minutes of Jordan Nora. Like, good for him. He had a good game, hit a couple of threes, had a good offensive game. Thanasis and Jordan Nora playing together, I was like, oh my gosh. And then they threw in Justin Robinson, and but they're gonna get Bobby Portis back, so they didn't have any backup bigs. Bobby Portis
Dante's still hurt, right?
DiVincenzo is gonna come back, and then they also have Rodney Hood, who's kind of like a flyer veteran type guy that they can bring in. So the rotation will get a little bit better, but it did look kind of rough. I was like, oh man, after Giannis, Drew, Middleton, Brook Lopez, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, you're like, oh, that's like 7 players, and then you got nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, all is well in the NBA world when Coach Bud decisions are being criticized on Twitter.
Oh, we're back.
Right back. He just won a title,
baby.
And we're like, what are these lineups he's doing? What is this? What is this?
Oh, on the other side of things, I saw a nice James Johnson missed layup. Missed those, man.
Hey, get off him. I love James Johnson.
Sorry.
He was the Giannis stopper for him tonight. Put him in there against him.
A lot of forced passes to Nick Claxton for the Nets.
Yeah.
They were just trying to feed him. He finished 6 of 9 from the field.
Did Kyrie take a shot tonight?
Neither on the court or off the court, I was told. Just kidding. I wasn't told that. There you go. So I think on the Eastern Conference side, what it means for the Mavericks is I don't think either of these two teams look like a dominating like Warriors in 2018 team. Like none of these teams I think look like
on the West.
Lakers, Nets, Bucks. Those are the top 3 teams a lot of people think, right? Those are the top 3 title contenders. I don't think any of them look unbeatable. Where you just look at a team and you go, oh, the Mavs can't even match up with those teams.
Yeah, no, my biggest takeaway from the night of the 4 teams that played was, I think the Warriors will be a little bit better than what I think the Warriors will hold fort until Clay gets back.
Yeah. And
that was my biggest takeaway.
Mine was, I don't think any of these 3 teams that are title favorites are that like intimidating. Basically.
I think the Bucks are. I mean, I think the Bucks and Nets are more for me than the Lakers, but
sure, yeah, but they're not. They still have their flaws.
Yeah.
So there.
I mean, have you felt that way about any team since the Golden State 4 Horsemen?
No, I mean the Miami Heat teams, and then there was the Warriors teams, and
we had JJ Barea. That is it.
There you go, guys. That's our breakdown of the games. We will be back. The Mavericks play a basketball game on Thursday. We will be breaking that down post game. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavericks. Go listen to Locked On Fantasy Basketball for your second listen of the day. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball podcast. He is dominating on the podcast side and the YouTube side. It's free and available on all platforms. Go check it out. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.